this year is a
Mhm.
year that shit is just going to go like sideways and upside down and all of that. And I want you to know that is part of the plan. So just do not think you're getting thrown off your path or getting it
Mhm.
wrong or whatever you're thinking. You're heading squarely towards your legacy
Mm.
with all of this.
Welcome to Oh Shit, I'm Dead, the Legacy Podcast, the show where we ask the big question, what will they say about you when you're gone? Each week, we sit down with icons, trailblazers, and legends in the making to dive into their stories, scandals, and the legacies they're leaving behind. And now, here's your host, the video godfather himself, Lou Bortone.
Hey, it's the Bartone, and welcome to Oh Shit, I'm Dead, a legacy podcast. And I am so excited about my guest today, my friend, my mentor, my partner in crime, Patty Lennon, because you really inspired me to do this legacy podcast. Because I've really been thinking a lot. Maybe it's because I'm near a big birthday about, okay, what are people going to say about us when we're not here anymore? I never thought about that until I was older, but now that we're getting a little bit more mature, it's time to think about what happens after. So thank you so much for being here, Patty. And thank you also for being an early guest, because I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
I love it.
you have inspired me to do this. So let me ask you, because I really see you, and I'm not a woo-woo person necessarily, but I really see you as my spiritual guide and mentor. So thank you for all your help in the past. And let me start with this first. What is your thought about legacy? When I say that word, what does that mean to you?
It's so interesting when you reached out and talked about that. I was like, this is so interesting because I had a really contentious relationship with that word up until about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
It always would trigger me. And mostly because probably two reasons. One, subconsciously, I didn't know if I was leaving a good enough legacy.
Mm.
And the other side is when I heard people talk about it, legacy to me is such a banner word. It's such a like big word and meaningful and like historically means something really important.
Mhm.
And yet in the digital marketing space, it started to get thrown around. And to
Yeah.
me, it felt like it was just a little bit of a hook
Yeah.
that different types of coaches and marketers were using to just convince people to spend more money on their programs in the
Yes.
hopes that their legacy would be. So I think it's twofold. My triggers were twofold. One, was I doing enough, which is my
Mhm.
big wound. I think it's a lot of people's wound. Am I enough? Am I doing enough?
Mhm.
But the other side is it started to be diluted in the space you and I play in. And that
Yeah.
kind of felt a little insulting, I think, to people who really
Mhm.
left a legacy, a meaningful legacy in the historical sense of the word. But as you and I have talked about, but for those you listening, I took a year off. I took a year
Mm.
sabbatical that was guided by spirit, like I was told to do it. And a lot shifted for me during that year. There was a lot of ego release. And now that's gone. I had been playing with that word. And to me, legacy for me, in the way that I'm built, in the way I think of the world, is to resolve any wounds, any ancestral wounds I can, so that I hand down that health and that absence of wounding or that healing to the generations that come after me. So generally speaking, that's how I think of the word now.
Yeah, it is a loaded word. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was to look at it not so seriously, maybe a little bit more lighthearted, but also talk about the fact that, okay, this is not a marketing, but people have used it as a marketing thing. But I think about it a lot because on my dad's birthday, his Facebook thing will come up and 100 people will say, oh my God, such an amazing guy, blah, blah, blah. So that's cool. That's okay. People remember him and have a legacy. Do you have a way that you think in terms of, I'd really like to be remembered as blank?
And when you put it in front of me the way you're looking at it, I really love that because it was like a tool to
Hmm.
say what gives meaning to your life? Because once you're dead, a lot of the stuff we like reach for and fight for, being productive, making money, being
Right.
famous, being, you know, liked, right? Which is very different than being remembered. All of that goes away once you're dead. And so then it is what's really important. When you let go of your own ego
Mhm.
desires, what is your life about? So that's actually gotten me thinking in a different way about the word. So I think I'm about to answer a question I'm not sure you asked. Tell me what the question
Okay.
was again, and then I'm going to answer
I
it.
was gonna say, but I want to hear what you have to say about whatever pops into your head. But it was
Yeah.
really, what would you like to be remembered for?
Yeah. Okay, good. That was the question I was going to answer because that's what I've been thinking about. And what I would like to be remembered is that, and it's like already making me tear up, is that people feel that they understood their relationship to God or source or spirit or whatever word you want to call, that in this world where we can feel lonely,
Hmm.
that someone felt less lonely. Not because of me specifically, but because I helped them connect
Hmm.
to the love and the universal support and the spiritual support that is available to us 24/7.
Yeah, I think that's spot on because when I think of you, I think of you've always created a safe space. You've helped me reconnect with my ancestors and my grandfather from Italy and stuff that I just would have glossed over if it wasn't for you creating that space, which I think you call it like the space for magic, right? That's
Yeah.
your brand. So very cool. And some people say, oh, my legacy is my kids, for better or worse. And then, like, from having come from Hollywood and Los Angeles and all that kind of stuff, I thought legacy was they'd name a wing of a hospital after you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's nobody's gonna name a wing of a hospital unless it's like a mental institution or something. But I had to like reframe how oh, it's not about having something named after you or having a foundation or a library or whatever. I think those of us who are not in those hallowed halls of billionaires, how do we want to be remembered, even though there may not be a statue or a library named after us?
And again, even if there was, like, I do think we've shifted significantly in the last 40 years where we all understand every hospital is eventually going to be not a hospital anymore, right? Like buildings dissolve. Like those legacies, I think when someone's put their life towards helping others with their money and they did it through different avenues where their names are in places, I think that's wonderful. But when someone that actually knew that person talks about them, does it match the name on the hospital
Right.
or what that name should stand for? Or is it something very different? And I think because of the time I spent in the spirit realm, like going back and forth and getting messages and understanding what people are saying on the other side of the veil and like what they want their loved ones to know, the reality is once you get to the other side, that name on the hospital isn't going to mean anything to you on the other side. And if you
Mhm.
treated people in a way that diminished them or enlivened them or made a difference in their life, that is going to be the currency you're working with on that
Mhm.
side. Again, I know you're trying to stay lighthearted and I'm taking things deep, Lou. We can
No,
go
I
back
want to
up
go.
to
I
the
want to go.
when you're dead.
I want to explore that because that's the other part of it. When you start to think, people say, well, you've got fewer years ahead of you than behind you. And then you start to think, okay, what is next? Because you and I have talked a little bit about past lives. And am I just going to keep doing this until I get it right? Because we've talked about, okay,
That I
with all
can
you,
tell you. I can give you that answer is yes.
yeah, yes, yeah, which is interesting because then you think about, okay, if I come back, um, am I still going to be a soul? Am I going to be 2000 years ago, 2000 years from now? It's also weird with this whole temporal, like you're here for 75 years or whatever, and then you're not. I don't know. What can you say about
Yeah.
that sort of phase?
Yes, it's true that the time space continuum is a earthbound reality, right? Your next life isn't necessarily a linear progression, meaning if you were born in 1960 or 70, it doesn't mean your next life you're born in 2050 or 3000 or whatever it is, because that linear expression of time doesn't exist. You
Mhm.
really time as it actually like, lifetimes it looks more like a spiral as someone's explained it. Many people have explained it that way. And that's the
Mhm.
best way in conceptualizing it because our mind can't conceptualize a nonlinear expression. But
Mhm.
if you think of it like a spiral where all lifetimes are touching each other, like a slinky,
Mhm.
there is no before and after. There is a constant interaction of all those lifetimes with each other.
Mhm.
And I have an example that I think will be helpful, but I'm going to try and finish out this thought first. But just remind me, it was something having to do with my daughter healing something in me. So I want to talk about that in a second because I think it
Okay.
matters. When, if you take what society historically has said is our purpose, right? Which is
Mhm.
to either it's to make more money or to grow in your profession or to be of service to the world, even. It's all an external expression of who
Mhm.
you are. And really, those are symptoms of who you are. And who you are is really the game, right?
Right.
That's really the game. And so every lifetime is meant to help us understand that we are pure divinity, that we are God, that we are source, that we are spirit. Anytime you have an ego attachment, that ego attachment is like a layer between you and this knowledge, this understanding. And so our lifetimes are about just stripping away. So what that looks like is when you're like greedy, right? Like a long time ago, another lifetime, like one of your first lifetimes when you were a baby soul and you were like, I want stuff. Cause here I am. I'm now in this earthbound reality and I feel all this cravings and these addictions. And then as you go through the lifetimes, the greed gets stripped away. But then there's like more subtler things where you maybe are always taking care of people in the hopes that they'll love you. Right. And that's your thing to work on. And so then you eventually get to the place where you understand that people can leave your life because you're not taking care of them. And that's okay. Right. And that doesn't look so ego, but it is. And
Mhm.
also you realize you don't need other people to accept you and other people's rejection doesn't define you. It's you and source. That's it. Right. And then when you're in that relationship, then all of a sudden people are benefiting, like they are feeling so good around you. They do understand how amazing they are. They do get help from you in a way that's healthy, right? And so, anyway, that was a
Wow.
little bit of a tangent, but that to me is really the journey. So, the legacy is if, let's say, you manage to get there in this lifetime. I know I'm not there, but let's say someone did, and they were essentially like Jesus, the Buddha, you know, all the female ones that we don't know about because they weren't male, right? And you were this embodied version of source, then miracles just start happening around you because you are love. Like whenever one human comes in contact with um what I want to call unaffected love, it's like almost unconditional love, but it's just not affected by their relationship to you. It's just love. When you're around someone like that, you feel different.
Mm.
You change. And every single one of us operating, even at a short time at that vibration, changes 20,000 people.
Wow.
So talk about legacy. Like that's not a
Yeah.
legacy you would recognize while you were here on the planet. But when you get to the other side, you get shown all that shit.
Mm.
That's some good stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go back to taking it back to your family and your daughter. You were going to talk about a lesson.
Yes, there's this concept, and they call it a concept because I've been taught it, but I've talked to spirit about it. I've talked to my spirit team, and I've pretty much been like, yes, that's true. Is that when you heal something in this lifetime, you heal it 7 generations forward and
Wow.
7 generations back.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're not just legacying forward, you're creating a legacy backwards, right? That's really powerful. But I had always seen it as my role. As I'm healing this thing, I'm helping 7 generations back.
Mm.
My mother, my grandmother, all people who dealt with always worrying about, am I giving enough? Am I giving enough? Am I giving enough? And always having a hard time taking help, right? And
Mhm.
so then going forward, I look at my daughter and my son, but in this particular case, this is something that seems to pass on a little bit stronger in the female line.
Mhm.
And am I activating in her the skills, the wisdom, the confidence, the whatever, to not take on this burden as I'm working on healing it for myself?
Mhm.
And that's always been my mindset. And something happened a few months ago, and tell you the story quickly. She has worked really hard in one of her sports in field hockey, and she is the
Mhm.
captain of the team. This is her senior year, and it was senior night, and she got sick. And my daughter will go to school when she's sick. Like, she's not someone that calls in sick a lot. And she was like, I can't. I'm sick.
Wow.
I really can't. And it was this
Mhm.
weird virus that had been going around. So this was a Monday. She had gotten it Sunday night. It was like an 18-hour virus. By noon, she was really okay. But the school rules are the school rules. And I was devastated for her.
Mm.
I was devastated for her. And I'm not the normal sports mom. I haven't obsessed about this. This was just something she put her heart and soul into.
Yeah.
And I sat her down and I go, how are you doing with this? And I'm not the parent that's going to go in and demand that they play
Yeah.
her or anything. And she goes, Mom, am I disappointed? Yes. Do I trust that God has a plan? Also, yes. And I am not going to argue with that plan.
Wow.
And like,
Mm.
she wasn't faking it. She ended up playing in the game through an exception that I did not request. And quite honestly, to me, looked like a miracle in and of itself.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, the next day, something happened where something was taken away from me
Mm.
that I thought shouldn't have been. And I didn't have any zing to it. I was just in total faith that
Yeah.
everything was working out exactly as it should have. And it suddenly hit me. She healed it for me.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then, and this is what really spun me out, I was sharing that story. I don't remember if I was sharing it in a group in my community or whatever, but someone said to me, yeah, but the only way she could have done that was what you planted inside of her.
Mhm.
And then it all of a sudden went back to that spiral experience we all
Right.
have of how we feed into each other and how it's
Mhm.
not this linear expression of life.
Yeah.
And that to me then made this whole concept of where one of us starts and another one ends is not as important as what we
Mhm.
do in each moment.
Yeah.
That makes
Wow.
sense?
Yeah. I tease my daughter because she'll be like, she has these a little bit of neurosis. How do you say it? Plural
Neuroses?
neurosis about,
Anxious?
I'm afraid to go to Walmart because I don't want to be in a mass shooting. Oh, yeah, you got that from me. That's
Mhm.
me. Thank you. You're welcome. So I hope that I'm leaving them some good things as well. But it's so funny how some of that stuff gets passed down. I was like, whoa, that was that. Your grandmother used to say that. She didn't know that. So I guess for better or worse, it's like we've got a lot of this baggage.
Or legacy, right? Because the thing is, I think we do want to talk about legacy in a good way,
Hmm.
absolutely. But what also hit me was that my daughter is who she is because I did the work I did,
Hmm.
but I'm able to do the work I did because my mom did the work she did, even though she didn't do work the way we
Right.
talk about it, right?
Yep.
And so every generation overcomes so much
Mhm.
and hands down that strength, even if it doesn't always look like strength. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yep. Yeah. And I know it's funny. We talked about, you and I have talked a lot about my Italian grandfather who came here when he was 18, Ellis Island, the whole deal, no money, the coat on his back.
Yeah.
13 kids later. That's where my dad came from. Yeah, and you've reconnected me to that because now I feel like a strong pull to go back to Italy and to find those roots and to learn more about those folks because I think that part of my legacy lies in the past.
Yes.
Hmm,
Yes.
crazy. All right, let's switch gears because this is really deep stuff and let's
Yeah.
talk
So
about a few
light.
more fun things. Okay, if you had to play a song that every time someone mentioned your name, what song would it be?
Every time someone mentions your name, um, I don't remember the name of the song, but at my first conference, they had me pick a song and I was going to walk
Walk
onto
on music?
stage.
Yeah.
And it was Ali Murr's Trouble, I think is the name of the song.
Really? Yeah, I think I know that one.
So honestly, that was what popped into my head is the song I
That's
walked
funny.
on stage.
Yeah.
I don't even know why. And I don't think it was the answer you were looking for, but it was funny because I thought you were going to say a different question. And the answer that had already popped into my head, even though I didn't know what the question was, is I really hope after I'm gone that something else people say about me is she taught me how I could be a salty bitch and spiritual at the
Yeah,
same
that's awesome.
time. That is I was with my family, my nieces, I don't get to see them very often. They're older, they live in London. And they gave me the biggest compliment. And they were like, Auntie Patty, I just want you to know, like, when you're not here, we talk about you and we say, you know what, Auntie Patty, she's a bad bitch. And like, I love that.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
love that my example gives them permission to make their
Mhm,
own rules.
mhm.
And being spiritual and being connected to God doesn't mean being pious. It doesn't mean following some rules. It's just, so I think that Ollie Weir's,
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what it's about.
that's pretty funny. Badass.
Yeah.
The woo-woo badass. That's funny because I'm always talking to my wife about, "Oh, I gotta put this on my funeral playlist." I have a whole list of songs. I've got Foo Fighters and Rush and Led Zeppelin. Oh my god, I wanna go to my funeral. There's gonna be some good music there. So,
Mhm.
anyway, all right, one other one. If they're gonna make a movie about your life, who would play you in the movie?
Oh my God. Again, I only remember her first name. And she would be older than me, so that probably won't work out, but we're just gonna pretend that time and space doesn't exist. Her first name is Bonnie,
Mhm,
and was in she always played like a good person.
mhm.
She was with Steve Martin in a movie where, like, they had, like, a lot of kids.
Mm, like
Okay.
he was mine and yours.
I'm gonna
Okay.
come up with a backup person.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll
Um,
figure out who that tell me the movie and I'll figure out who it was.
it was a remake of a Disney movie, and it was like
Okay.
a dozen something, like
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah,
makes a
Keeper by the
dozen, or
Dozen, yeah. Okay,
I just love her. I just
yeah.
love her, that's why I picked her. So, like,
Oh, was
see,
she in, what's the movie with Tom Cruise and Renee Zellweger? Show Me the Money one.
and she's the sister.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
know exactly who it is now. Yep.
So that's
Okay.
who I would pick.
And
Now,
that
if I was
checks
gonna
out.
pick someone that was gonna be, like, still alive, I'm assuming this is getting done later on, I guess I'll just stick with her.
Okay, that works. Yeah, I know. I think maybe John Cusack for me. I'm not sure though. I know
Yes.
I'm way too not nearly
Yes.
as pretty as him, makeup and all that. So,
I you're definitely as pretty as him. Yeah. That is perfect for you.
yes.
Perfect. Well,
So
who do you think should play me?
Meryl Streep,
Really?
younger, younger.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're giving me a lot of depth. Thank
yeah.
you, Lou.
So because
Thank you for
that's it.
that.
She's multidimensional. So
She is. She's
anyway,
magic.
yes. That's awesome. Okay, cool. I think we've covered legacy, and I can happily say now I'm not quite as afraid to die. So, thank you.
Excellent.
Anything else you want to tell folks about? Anything that you're working on? You want to? This is the shameless plug section of the podcast.
I love it. Now, there's nothing for me to plug. The only thing I'll plug is a PSA. And that'll be, we're recording this right at the start of 2025. I assume it'll be going out similar like
Yeah.
timing. This year is a
Hmm.
year that shit is just going to go like sideways and upside down and all of that. And I want you to know that is part of the plan. So just do not think you're getting thrown off your path or getting it
Hmm.
wrong or whatever you're thinking. You're heading squarely towards your legacy
Mm,
with all of this.
that's awesome. That's good to know because yeah, I mean I've vacillated between can I just crawl under a blanket for 4 years or do I just get out there and say damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. So
Yeah. And actually I will give myself a plug. My book Make Space for Magic can be found on Amazon. And I
yes,
think it will be a really good companion to the year that we're going into. So yeah,
absolutely. Very
please.
timely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Patty Lennon. You are a great friend and colleague, and I appreciate you so much. And we'll see you soon.
I appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Oh Shit, I'm Dead, the Legacy Podcast. Please subscribe and tell your friends about the podcast, and do it now while you're still alive and kicking. Check out other episodes at ohshitimdead.com.